Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having an incredible day or night in Jesus. Thank you so much for being with us. We're looking at the fact that God is simple, and what that means is obviously He's all intelligence, He's all powerful, wisdom, love, holy, but what it means is God's essential nature is spirit. And that, it's not spirit plus Saturn. He's not pantheistic. It's not spirit plus Jupiter. It's not spirit plus the moon. It's not spirit plus atoms, so to speak. And that it's just spirit. And that's what simplicity of being is. But not everybody believes God is simple. So let's take a look. We're on the Stanford Dictionary of Philosophy under Monotheism. Thanks for being here. Check out our other videos. Join us daily. Hit the bell notification. Share with your friends, family. Church members. All right. So there's two arguments about God being simple and whether this is a first-ordered property or second-ordered property. So first, the doctrine of divine simplicity is highly controversial. Not all theists accept it. Now, I will say most of the ones I've read do accept it, that God is a spirit. But, there's some that would say, God is something else. Now, you hear this a lot, and there's, even among oneness people, especially Trinitarians, does God have a spirit body? Now, Ezekiel 1 may show that he does, certain parts of the Torah may show that he did. Some would say that's actually the Logos, the visible of the invisible, on and so forth. Others would say no, like Evans in Great Doctrines of the Bible, classic example of that, but many other theologians say no, God does not have a spirit body. The God is a spirit, and so a body would confine him, but since he's omnipresent, that can be everywhere at once and is everywhere at once, which that's even that doctrine of omnipresence, you then have to go into categories of that. And I hate to use the term emanations because of its Gnostic connotations, but there's other synonymous words that you can use without that, like glories and various things such as that throughout history. That, because is he everywhere in the same way all at once? Because if you say yes, then how do you receive the baptism of the Holy Ghost? But you do have Psalm 139, they'll make my bed in hell, I'm there, even though hell's supposed to be the absence of God, on and so forth. But some would say God is not simple, and that would be a whole nother can of worms. That God is not in his essential nature just spirit without any additions. Secondly, but you have properties, again, of holiness and these things, wisdom, that he is that as well, love, but that's just part of who he is. But he is spirit. It is essential nature. I was reading Hippolytus the other day, and he said the Jews of his day, which is about 200 AD, taught that God had a spirit beside him. His spirit was beside him. I thought that was interesting. Second, even the doctrine is accepted, simplicity. The most that may be required is that God's essential real properties are either identical with each other or equivalent to each other. God also appears to have real contingent properties. However, and if he does, these properties can't be identical or equivalent with his essential properties. Now, one thing that I really regret about this entry in this article is I wish it would have discussed a little more about God's contingent properties. But I think the Baker Dictionary, I think Elwell did that, has good stuff. Among many would have decent thoughts on that. Maybe John Frame has some things on that as well. Cornelius Van Til also. For consider the property of being the ultimate cause of my existence, or the property of knowing that I am the author of this entry. Since acting and knowing are paradigmic cases of real properties, being the ultimate cause of my existence, or knowing that I'm the author of this entry, would seem to be real properties of God. And then paste Thomas Aquinas and others who implausibly insist that they aren't even, though God really has them, that is, even though God really does stand in these relations to me. But they are also contingent properties of God, since there are possible worlds in which God exists and doesn't create me, and possible worlds in which God exists but doesn't know that I am the author of this entry, because, for example, I never write it. Now, I will say, when I was studying for a doctorate in Christian philosophy, and reading a lot of philosophical treatises 20 years ago, either side of possible worlds. Old Leibniz, God told Leibniz, who was the co-founder of calculus with Isaac Newton, came up with the possible world. This is where Voltaire came against him with Candide, and that if this is the best of possible worlds, it's kind of a crazy thing according to Voltaire, but possible worlds. And so when you're studying philosophy, and you have to realize philosophy is the love of wisdom, it's not the love of truth. Something can be philosophically true, but realistically incorrect, not true, which is always something, they waited till I was in a PhD class to tell me that philosophy wasn't the pursuit of truth. That was not a good thing when I discovered that, but I probably should have discovered it well before then. But anyhow, somebody probably should have told me. But anyhow, so possible worlds. Well, is there a possible world where God didn't create me? Well, that would be an argument, because then is God's foreknowledge causative? And if he knows everything and he knows I existed, would there be a possible world? But if you say there wasn't a possible world, then you're saying God can't do everything. So it gets into, but then you want to cast down imaginations and all this. And so a contingent property would be, okay, God is holy, wisdom, wise, omniscient, but then the fact that he knows the number of hairs on my head, does that fall under a first order property of omniscience, or is it a second order or contingent property that he knows that, but that's not exactly a part of who he is? Could God still be God and not know the number of hairs on my head because I didn't exist? On and on and so forth. So, since God has his essential properties in every possible world in which he exists and does not have his contingent properties in every possible world in which he exists, his contingent properties can't be identical with or equivalent to his essential properties. Now, he then concludes this, the author of this article: the argument from simplicity thus fails because it leaves open the possibility that two gods could be distinguished by a difference in their real contingent properties. That, okay, you could have two omnipotents that are holy, omniscient, omnibenevolent, on and so forth, but that one in a possible world might know I existed, one didn't know I existed because I don't exist in that possible world. And I'm just going to tell you, these people I'm sure that write this are far smarter than me, way smarter than me. But I still have a problem with that. I would say God is simple, and Alvin Plantinga has good stuff on that, which is pretty interesting. And I would say that God's simplicity does highly implicate his monotheistic tendencies. Not monotheistic tendencies, his monotheistic essentiality of who he is. So we're going to look at monotheism from an argument of perfection, but we're going to start a whole nother video on that. So join us daily. Check out our videos. We've got a ton of different subjects. We love you. Talk with you later. God is one. Bye-bye.